some late game situations, both in regulation and overtime, seem to kind of be the difference. I know it's all part of the learning process. It's still got to be tough.
Yep, this one stinks because they did everything well enough to win the game. And there's just some plays down the stretch and that hurt us. Some was our own doing, some were my fault, some was officials seeing the game differently than how we saw the game. But at the end of the day, we've been talking about before you can win big games, you've got to learn how not to lose big games. And so those things that we did, those are the things that we've got to try to eliminate and do a little bit better. And so tough learning lesson, but we'll get better from this.
I guess with such a young team, how does, these 3 losses here, how does that build character going into like the last month of the season, and how do you get the momentum back on your side? Yeah,
I think the momentum gets back when you win. That's where we'll get momentum back. And so I think had we won this game today, we'd have momentum back. This team wants to win. They compete to win. You can see that in how they play each and every game. How does it build character? I think the character, they earn it through how hard they work in practice every day. And so, they want to compete. They want to compete at the top. I think they've proven, this group has proven, even though they don't have a whole lot of experience doing that, but they've proven they can compete with the very best teams in this conference right now. We don't have to wait. We can do it right now. And so, but there's things that we have to do to make sure that we come out with the win against those teams.
What do you tell Alexis about that late regulation? Because it seemed like that was just a tough spot over there by the sideline.
Well, it was a tough spot. And if that was an isolated incident, but we do that. And she's not doing Hope fouled at half court. Jaden the same way, but not in the backcourt in overtime. And so that's something that we've worked on and they've gotten way better at. And that's just a bad circumstance. Like, obviously if she doesn't foul right there, then game's over. We're feeling a little bit differently about the game. Credit goes to Charlotte for making the run down the stretch. We were doing too much fouling, and a lot of the fouls weren't in the backcourt. I know Lexus has happened back there. A lot of those fouls were around the basket, offensive rebounds, multiple offensive rebounds down the stretch there, and so and then on drives. And so those were the 2 things that was hurting us on their run. They were making their run somewhat at the free throw line. And that's kind of what happened both at UAB and Middle Tennessee. We kept putting them at the free throw line. So we've got to make sure that we don't lose the game by fouling and putting people at the free throw line so that we can win the game.
Macy said that kind of led to Charlotte's start there in overtime. But to the credit of your team, you battle back.
Right.
Girl has the ball going into the lane for a possible go-ahead bucket. I mean, the fight of the team.
Right.
Just come up short there with the offense.
And Lexi came back and made a big 3 to put us in that spot. And I felt like we had a shot clock violation down the other end, but we didn't get the rebound. Right. And so those are all those little situations that are working against us from winning big games right now. And so that's this group will get stronger, tougher, a little bit smarter. It's already a smart group, but they'll get a little bit wiser. Maybe that's the word I should use. They'll get a little bit wiser, and they'll be better prepared for the next situation like that.
You came out and the pacing, a little bit slower to start the game, and then the third quarter picked up. Is that kind of the game plan going in, was to maybe start out slow, and then once I guess it maybe didn't go as well, you maybe try to pick up the pace in that third quarter?
No, we want the pace to be up, but a lot of that was Charlotte's a very experienced group. They've got super senior guards out there that are 2 of the best in the conference, and so you don't speed them up very easily. And we've won games where we played a much more controlled game. La Tech here was a controlled game. North Texas at North Texas was a very controlled game. And so our kids, you can tell, we do a pretty good job getting out in transition and running, and that's what they like to do. But sometimes the other team does a good job making sure that you don't do that by taking care of the ball or maybe walking the ball off the floor or being a little bit slower. So we've become more disciplined in not letting that determine how we play and make sure we continue to play and look for those opportunities to get transition. So we want to get out in transition, but we've got to still be able to win games that aren't that style or aren't that tempo. Thanks, guys.